Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Transformational Architecture, Engineering, and Construction. And in today's episode, I'm really excited. We have Quentin Sim. Quentin is the Chief Customer Success Officer at Podium and one of the original members that founded and launched Podium out of Lend-Lease. So welcome, Quentin, and thank you for taking the time to join us today.
Hi, Bill. Thank you for having me. Very excited here.
So I wanted to jump in and just set the tone a little bit about what we're going to talk about. And I think there are two major forces today that are shaping the future of our industry. And I think they're going to have major impact. The first force, which I think is captured really well in a recent Goldman Sachs report, talks about the inefficiency in our industry. And it's quite compelling when you hear just how inefficient the industry is that we have to do something. And just to give you a few of the facts, between 1970 and 2024 in the US, labor productivity in the US, overall, all industries doubled, more than doubled in that period of time. So if it used to take $2 to produce something, it now takes $1 to produce something. And yet, if you look at the construction industry, productivity fell by 30%. So if it used to take $1 to do something, it now takes $1.30. So when you begin to look at it, it's almost 2.5 times less productive today compared to every other industry in the US. And the study finds that that also plays out into across the entire set of first world countries. They see very similar numbers. And, if you're going to deal with the affordable housing issue in the US, unless you can build 4 million more new homes, we're never really going to get ahead of the affordable housing. So it's a real issue for residential. It's a real issue to build high quality data centers, and it's a real issue in industrial buildings as well. I think the other major trend we see is artificial intelligence. It's hard to not have a conversation these days without someone saying AI, AI, AI. But in this case, I think it goes without saying that there's a realism to the opportunity with AI that we have to address the first major force. So if we can somehow capture the innovation around AI into our industry, we might have a way to allow our industry to catch up to what other industries have done in the last 50 years. And to just give you a feel for some of that, Anthropic has put out a lot of information and reports, but I think a couple of key points to be made here is well, first of all, they're seeing about 19%, about 1 out of every 5 AEC firm is actively applying AI. That's now it's not 100%, but it's 20%. But here's the number I was fascinated by. 55% of construction firms have implemented AI, while only 27% of the entire community have used it. So when you begin to look at this, we're starting to see Gen AI used for optimization of designs. We're seeing all the firms, primarily construction firms, beginning, but also architectural engineering firms following it, not quite as fast. And I think the last thing Anthropic points out, and this may have to be a little to do with adoption, is that they view that the impact to jobs in the construction space is going to be nearly zero. Meaning we will need people doing work on sites, and we're probably not getting rid of any of those people. But the construction people are feeling like the reason they're inefficient is what they're given from the architects, engineers, and developers. And by the way, the architects and engineers feel they're inefficient because what they're given by the developers. So if we look at it, I think the construction people really want to address it because they want that efficiency. I think at the other end of the spectrum, the architecture and engineering firms show up very high in potentially being changed by AI. So, we've got a lot going on here where inefficiency isn't allowing us to do what needs to get done. We've got AI coming, which seems to be holding a lot of promise to get there, but it probably will impact different parts of the value chain differently. And so everybody's trying to figure this out. Why we have Quentin here is because Quentin has some of the most in-depth knowledge on the ground, talking to these companies, seeing what they're doing, helping them begin to get on the journey. And I don't think on a global basis, by the way, and I don't think we can have a better person to share what's the reality of inefficiency combined with technology and AI to really see can we bend the curve here going forward. So, Quentin, I think this is going to be a great podcast, and I've now set you up. So let's turn to you. And my first question to you is: let's start at the beginning of the value chain. Developers, they in the end are one of the ones most affected by inefficiency and the demands, because in the end it bites into what kind of projects they can do, how much money they can make, and so on. So how are they feeling today, and what are they thinking about how to bend the curve, and what do they talk to you about? So let's start with the developer. What are you seeing from developers, and how are they thinking about this move to AI innovation, helping them deliver better, more profitable projects?
Thanks, Bill. I think as a practitioner in the industry for more than a decade now, I also feel a lot of the same pains when you mentioned that the industry is inefficient, right? But I think that's also inherently for everyone noting that buildings are more complex to build nowadays than ever before. Because people see buildings as not just structures now. We have a lot of complex systems that run underneath it. And of course, with sustainability challenges, needing to ensure that you have all this smart metering, monitoring, even building smartly inside it inherently makes it super complicated, more than before in the 1960s. And therefore, the challenge to build fast, better, cheaper makes it more complicated upfront for anybody within the chain of equation. And I think for a lot of developers, they are the same. They have been the same profit-driven mind since day one. But at the same time, I see a lot of developers, they're not just saying that how can we make money faster or better. Making money is still the key central goal, but a lot of them come with the vision of how can I make my buildings better? And underlying that vision is how can I deliver my buildings with lesser problems? So one of the things where they look at issues is that they look at this thing called DFMA is one of the things, or looking at modular construction, because that allows them to be able to modularize a lot of kit of parts kind of approaches, especially when you have big developers who are looking at delivering like millions of units within a set time frame, especially the state-owned developers, where, like you said, low-cost housing is a priority for them. So if I look at that angle and say that I have actually a kit of parts that I want to build it through, and I want to standardize them because I need them to be delivered with quality, what can I do to ensure that that gets done? And that answer is always, let's need to apply technology into it. Because technology with AI has the ability to take the modularized components and then look at the different permutations you can do on the site, and then work out the human conditions within the site that makes the most sense, and then deliver that project. Now, right now, that process is absolutely manual, and they have no idea what they need to do, because even with a kit of parts, there are thousands of combinations you have to consider. And right now, all the ideas that what's best to arrange even a site is going to lie in one or two senior managers, or rather senior designers, senior contractors who have seen the whole process. And buildings take years to build, right? I remember my first building when I started designing took 7 years from start to finish. So you're only going to have that 2 or 3 person in the team who comes into the project and he's probably swamped with thousands of things to do. and he doesn't have the ability to tell the junior staffs like the way you anchor the building is wrong. It's gonna make me cost a lot of money downstream. He can't go in and tell his business development team the way you price the building is wrong because he also may not have the latest data, right? So they are faced with these challenges every day because they have the knowledge, but they cannot download the knowledge back to the team because they just simply have no time. So what I see a lot of leaders is that they really want this knowledge built within into their DNA, and they want to build it digitally into the way they operate inside their DNA right now. And I think AI is definitely one of the ways they're looking at answers. I've seen a lot of spreadsheets. That's always one of the same love that they want to put that knowledge in the spreadsheet first. And of course, we know how inefficient that is.
Yeah. So when you look at that, then they're really ripe for automation. And do you think that they're willing? Do you see the developers starting to realize they should want, a, AI platform to begin to go across that 7-year period and coordinate and incorporate all the knowledge that they need to deliver that project?
I think absolutely right. And I think a lot of them, especially in the I would say now in the more than hundreds of conversations I have with developers now, it's very surprising statistic that I can show is that we've never met anyone who's adverse to any change.
Really?
Most of them that we talk to them were really interested in what we have to offer, maybe even not what we had to offer, but the promise or the vision of what we had to offer. And almost all of them were very, very open to looking at transformation. Now, but that comes with a caveat because a lot of them are faced with productivity issues. They know that they can't scale, and they know that they are always daunted with timelines, and then they know that any delays or any inefficiency in design costs them millions of dollars. They know that problem really well, and they always are looking towards digital. But I think before they adopt AI, a few people miss certain steps because within their organization, they need to understand that the first part is they have to modularize the way they work. Because without doing that, the AI is not going to understand the components because buildings are very complicated and a lot of information is not as simple as it seems because information is hidden somewhere in a spreadsheet and then linked again to a 3D model, which is again hidden, and AI doesn't do really well with 3D data. And another information is hidden in someone else's drawings, which is a 2D data, image data. And the information somewhere else might be hidden on the internet as well, right? So it really takes a lot of extraction and extrapolation of this data and comes to a consensus where I know what exactly would affect the needle for my building projects and then apply the digital tool that allows me to be more efficient in that aspect. For example, developers may know that sometimes piling, or rather, how much piling that goes to the ground in terms of building out the podium versus basement kind of approach. Can I test that out approach really, really fast at the start of the project? And they look for a digital tool that allows them to do that, right? Some developers may say efficiency is what I'm looking at, and I want the AI to be able to optimize that percentage of efficiency that allows me to gain that extra weight that I am able to sell more units. Another developer may say that I am just looking at different unit mix because I cannot be able to swap out units fast enough to test out different approaches to sell in the market. So as long as they have this few targeted approaches and they know how it links to each other, they are then able to apply the digital tool more efficiently to ensure that they are able then to leapfrog, I would say, the competitors and be more efficient in delivering their products.
Great. So let's move downstream a little bit to the architecture and engineering firms. They are probably the ones that are going to be the most impacted by this technology. As you have conversations with them, what are the conversations like? What are they thinking about this? Are they wanting to adopt it, or are they scared of it, or they're both simultaneously?
It's very interesting because I came from the same background. In fact, everyone does because out of school and university, no one starts off with just being a developer, right? You need experience to become a
Yeah.
developer. So everyone is it's actually very open to it, but it's just different levels of openness because there is some people within the industry that feel that the art of the craft, for instance, having the human to do the input, it's fundamental. We cannot let computers do the decision. I think it's a misnomer. When they see what we have to offer, there are two kinds of reactions. The first one is actually your platform or your software, you need a lot of human intervention to decide what's good or not. The software is just helping you to do that faster. The other side of the equation is, hey, I've already given you all the parameters that I put in. The computer should help me design and tell me what's the best. But inherently, those two chain of thoughts are two different approaches because one is like, we're just helping you accelerate. But the other one is the computer is essentially helping you to design based on what you already know. And can they coexist? My answer is yes, they could. But it will be very difficult right now, given that there's a lot of proliferation of AI tools that help people think that it can be really much faster, but they don't understand that the way we design right now is a lot of text, 2D, data, 3D. This inherently has a lot of context. And this context is currently way beyond what the AI model can handle at the moment. And there is therefore a technical limit. Now, for AE firms, they want to adopt AI and they want that leapfrog that they saw with LLMs to be able to do that. But there is also a sense of apprehension because they are billing by hours, not by outcomes. And in Singapore, I think that kind of move is shifting. And a lot of people are also shifting the mood because they understand. In Singapore, they have this thing called Cornet X, which actually you need to do a lot more upfront design because you have to do more considerations of coordination upfront. And that comes to the question is like, well, I am billing the whole cycle at the same price and I'm doing more work upfront. So should I charge more upfront? Or how the hours approach going to work now? And then there's a lot of noise, not noise, but rather a lot of people thinking now that we need to charge for outcomes. And I think that is the shift that we are looking at. And that's the shift that a lot of developers are also looking at with consultants is that if we deliver 1,000 options that are valuable with AI versus what I'm doing options of 10 now, and I'm billing the same amount of money because I'm billing same hours, does that make sense for my business if I'm using AI and I have an advantage? So a lot of people are thinking, what is my edge here and how can I build them more because my company can do more with less?
Yeah. I think it reminds me what you're saying of another report by Sequoia, the venture capital firm. I think it's called Service as a Software. And they make a couple of key points there that, I think build on what you said. The first thing is that mostly today with AI, we're doing co-pilots, AI to help an individual. And that's why in some cases we're not yet seeing inefficiencies being driven up, costs being driven up. And but that may be where the technology is today. However, they said where this is going to go and has to go is from copilot to autopilot. And they do point out, the AE firms will be one, not the only one. Many service firms are going to get transformed in this process. And what they say is once you go to autopilots, then you may still you still have people involved in our industry. Some industries you may not, but that's when you start to see the change. But what they make a point is that you can still charge by the hour in a copilot mode. But the minute you are looking at where outcome-based pricing is going, you have to invest in the software platform to sell an outcome. because you need that software platform underneath of you. You need that autopilot to be able to sell an outcome that's a little more guaranteed with a little more of the right price points so that you you may get even better margins. So this idea of moving to outcomes comes with it's not just saying outcomes. Sequoia makes the point you need an AI platform underneath it to deliver to deliver the next generation of kind of services. And they make a point, consulting firms that make this shift are going to be the winners and are going to be more profitable and are going to have more revenue because they're going to get the right balance of people and software in combination being sold out there. So it sounds like this idea of outcome selling uh, is really going to require the winners to restructure, not and really rethink their own processes and make investments in innovation. Is that how you see it?
Oh, absolutely. I see it even more actually because I think the Sequoia paper was very interesting because it it talks about a lot of software companies that are in the future services companies just masquerading as software companies, and I
Yeah,
think that's very true for how we have we see a few other people in the industry doing that, right? And a lot of times it's because they also offer services, and it's the services plus software that allows it to be a superpower. Now, in the AEC industry, for a lot of consultants, it's different. They are a services company at the start. But what happens is that a lot of large companies, they have the manpower and ability to make their own software stack. And we have helped a few of them to achieve that or to collaborate with that, right? And that allows them to be able to supercharge their designs to move for clients to say, hey, I have a software that allows you to do faster, but inherently I'm still selling services. And now, of course, I'm billing by the hour, but now they're moving towards billing by the outcome. Now, what happens with AI is going to change the game because we are seeing more and more small companies wanting to adopt AI, and they probably have one person in the team that's supercharged that can create a bunch of tools on top of a very profound platform or combinations of few, but then they are able to then compete with large companies who used to be able, you need a lot of resources to do that. AI is reducing that amount of resources required and then allowing them to deliver it at super scale. For instance, recently I just saw a few small companies coming up with websites for their design projects for their customers, right? And this is something you can't imagine even just 2 years ago. And that has value for the customers. And they're going to build that as the premium product services kind of approach, but underlying it is a software stack. And it's the same reason we see ourselves is that we are also providing that platform to allow a lot of that small companies, medium companies to be able to supercharge them because we are integrating a lot of these same processes that usually just takes a long time to do, right? A lot of times you see a feasibility study that requires a report. And actually, that's the report that kills you. It's not the study. The study is actually the easy part. It's the reporting that you need to deliver beautiful drawings, beautiful diagrams, beautiful renderings, and even beautiful languages and tables and Excel and put it nicely that kills you because every time someone does a last minute change, it becomes another 4 or 5 hours of reworking the report. Now we have tools underneath our platform stack that allow you to just automate that within seconds. Now that's a real productivity shift. And anyone now is able to then access that platform to get that super advantage and then just focus on the outcome. So they are able to supercharge their outcome approach, not talk about hours anymore, but look at what value you can deliver to have the advantage in this industry.
you know, I think know of KP Reddy, the venture capitalist, entrepreneur,
Oh yeah.
writer, and he certainly has a very specific set of opinions about the future here. And I'm intrigued that he goes so far as to say, in the future, everyone in AEC will have to be a developer. And I think he has a scale up company that he's put together, and he seems to be driving every individual in their project construction project management to be developing capabilities and tools. So it's no longer about reporting, it's work with, Claude and develop your own application to do this and become more productive, and then take the best of what's developed and continue to drive to be a different a service as a software. And I think he's already right on board with this outcome pricing. So that suggest, first, do you think that these professionals are going to need to take in, more, let's say, AI based development capabilities? And number two is, what does it mean for talent in the industry and what kind of skill sets we have to look for? So how do you think about it in terms of how this is going to play out?
It's it's a myriad of things. It's very evident now that a lot of things that we do with AI essentially removes the graduate role, or even internship roles, right? Because things like arranging layouts, like I've talked about previously, these are all replaced, effectively no longer needed. But we actually hire more interns now, even at Podium. And also, I hear a lot of companies who are hiring more graduates now. And the reason is not that because their roles are replaced, their roles have shifted. Because a lot of them do know how to operate AI and do know how to look at it at a different lens to supercharge a lot of the things they do. And they actually get to do the difficult work much faster, as opposed to sitting behind the computer and adjusting layouts. They are probably doing more soft skills related stuff like talking to clients, customers, learning how building is actually put together, learning things that actually matter for that. And I think that's the shift that we are seeing, because they realize that some of the things that we have assigning young talent to do previously is essentially useless because it's really just productivity work. And now we got to shift it to the intellectual and value proposition work. Now, the next part of your question is that the AEC firms, they have to look at something, technology, as something they have to build capability around. And a lot of times there are different ranges of companies, especially the ones we talk to, that have different vision of how that happens. The first one is obviously the worst, is saying that, sorry, we have all these data protection rules, blah, blah, blah. They can only use Copilot, or they can only use this AI, which is definitely not the best one out there. And it's not the best one because you, on your personal life, you use something else. And that AI arms race is going to show that gulf of difference really, really fast and really, really soon. Then the next part is that if you put this kind of barriers on top of that for young people, they're inherently going to feel very discouraged because they'll be like, I know there's a faster way to do it, but I'm not allowed to do it. Therefore, they're not going to join that company, right? But then there are also another companies who look at it and saying that we want to adopt AI, but we are not willing to hire the AI talent because it's just too many people. Now we're going to outsource it to services company who are allowing that. And that part is definitely growing because a lot of companies now do offer helping small organizations which have no capability to hire more people, but to help them build up their AI capability to train up senior people or mid-management people to take up these roles. And I think those people are going to thrive for sure because they are going to put their money where they're going to spend it. And they're going to supercharge because they have all their data knowledge there. The last one is a hybrid of both because a lot of AE firms who takes in young talent who want to rebuild their systems from ground up, they're going to benefit from a lot of the good things that are going to come because inherently what they are doing is they are building their own knowledge layer on top of newer tools with much faster and being very agile to move towards where the new things are, and they're going to stand out. And we are seeing a lot of these companies who do it really fast. And I'll say fortunately or unfortunately, these are always the bigger companies because they have the foresight and they have the money to move into these areas really, really much faster. And they definitely have the advantage right now.
Changing the topic to now podium, you were part of a team that, didn't this before Gen AI was cool and everybody started talking about AI and how it was going to change the world. You guys were building a platform for this industry. Why don't you go through a little bit about what is that platform and how do people think about using it today? And then kind of where are you taking it over the next few years?
So the platform came up from really much a developer who wants to own the whole vertical kind of view. And that's a very powerful vision. And that vision is something that I think everyone can resonate with. It's just many people have many different ways of looking at how it would be operationalized. And that has actually translated. You can see many different tools in the forefront of what we do at the moment, including Podium, each have a different approach of how we think that that would happen. And there's no doubt about it that these tools will be the forefront and center of the transformation. It's just a matter of which approach and who can capture the market faster would get that advantage. And in Podium, that vision, I think we are very strong position because, as I said, when we talk to customers, everyone was very positive around it. In fact, most of the times we're getting feature requests more than anything else. And a lot of these requests are very aligned with what the vision we have in the next 2 to 5 years. Essentially, they are just reading our roadmap without even us showing our roadmap. So I see that there's a lot of alignment on what we do. But what the vision is very simple. It's that any line or any massing that is created on the site that we draw, we have the backend engine that's powerful enough, the platform, that allows you to do design automation on top of it. That means if I have a site, I'm able to quickly test out my ideas. And then from there, with a powerful platform, allow that idea to be translated into buildable structure without much effort at all because it's all set up with the knowledge at the back end. And from that structure and MBPF, link it to real world products that actually matter at the start of your project. For instance, lifts, gensets. For data centers, it will be all your power units, your cooling towers. These are very, very costly data racks. And from there at the start, make a very informed decision of how you want to move that forward. And we are very well positioned because a lot of tools think about it as just massing. We don't. We start off with a proposition that any design at the start should be at least a schematic design upfront, but without the work of a schematic design required. And that allows you to close that productivity gap. And because we are a data platform, which is natural in this age, we are not agnostic. We are agnostic to any kind of file formats, right? And every time people do it, and that's the problem with digital transformation, is there's a file format to it. And people are surprised that it's like, oh, do you export to something that we don't? What do you want to export to? Because inherently Podium is just a set of data. And that data means APIs and means we can connect to a lot of other tools out there. We can bring in simulation data. We can bring out structured data. We can bring in structured data as well. And all these things becomes a big data platform that then allows you to input a lot of things that you want. Then you put in with your LLMs, your agents, they can start to read that information, allowing you to make very informed decision from the first day. I think that itself is the vision of where we want, and we are very much in a very good position to fulfill that vision through many different customers that we are currently offering this service to and product to.
And so your product is more than just Gen AI and an LLM. It's actually a more data platform. And at the AI level, it sounds like it's a more comprehensive use of AI and thinking about different approaches all melded together. Can you speak to a little bit about what have you done at the data layer and how do you think about the AI layer as you
Yeah.
go talk to customers?
So we start off with a deterministic AI layer. That means it's not hallucinating anything. It's not drawing from a large group of data to do it. We have done actually the hard work of doing deterministic layer where it really just goes in and calculates all the things. And we did a lot of hard work to link up all the different thought processes that a designer would do. And how do we do it? It's really the old way, essentially. The team comprises of half of it, like myself, industry professionals, and the other half software professionals, right? So we sit together and look at the problems of the industry and also how the way the industry work. And then we figure out a way to build that engine that allows it to do many different decisions at the same time. And that is essentially what the industry is about. Every time you design a building, it's multiple decisions that affect it at the same time. And we've built that foundation, so-called engine, that allows to do that. Now, when we put an AI model on top of it, that becomes really powerful because it's then able to extract information, whether from the internet, from a PDF regulation, from someone else's head, and then link it back to the data model and find that information, or then have intelligence on top of that information to then see what matters and what not. And on top of that, I think we are doing it very much different from what the LLMs are doing because it's the chat interface. But as you know, designers are designing it on the 3D interface. So it's very much visual and very much saying that you can actually see what the outcomes of that input is. For instance, if your building is missing a regulation on that, you're not going to want to read the regulation. You want to see it in the model. What does that mean? And that's what we are able to do.
That's great. And agentic AI, where does that fit into your vision?
Or it has already been coming out in our vision and has already been implemented in some parts of it. We see that as the superpower that will unlock a lot of automation nodes that people are doing. Because if you think about it, the construction process, well, every site is different. The process is the same. When you get a site, you do the same things. You look at the sun paths, you look at the regulations, you look at the conditions of the site, the topography, and you look at the numbers, what fits and what not. Now, we have started to operationalize a lot of these processes into just a very simple button, not even prompting, just buttons to say that I choose a site, analyze the site for me. Tell me what's the best unit mix here. Then suggest to me 10 options that work. And we are moving this more and more, not just from text, but going to move it into geometry. And that itself is not something we have seen right now in the space. And certainly we want to be the forefront of that, where in the future, it's as easy as inputting what the design approaches are, like maybe sketching, getting some sketches on, just give it to the system, and it basically comes up with very viable options. And I'm not talking about massing here again. We're talking about viable options who consider soil conditions, which consider, the current profit conditions for housing. Is it 900 square feet versus 1,500 square feet? It actually can give you unit layouts based on that. And this is in the realm of dreaming, but I don't think so because we have seen parts of it coming to life right now in our platform. And that's certainly very exciting.
So what kind of topologies are the hot topologies today that people are using Podium for?
Yeah. So this is where it's very important to draw that distinction, because when we start selling the vision, people are like, oh, can it be done for hospitals, offices and all? And we were like, yes, we can do it, but we always want to target a few things. Automation works well where you have modularized the components and modularized the kit of parts. For any projects that are very one-off and are very tailored to a very specific condition, it's not ripe for disruption. That still requires some sort of craft and some sort of human intervention most of the time. Now, the best typologies are the ones that have time pressure, kit of parts that's required, and also the need to deliver it modular, right? So instances we are focusing on residential, and we started off with, of course, social housings, because this have the three conditions all met. The second one is industrial buildings, We have started off that in Singapore as well with multi-story industrial buildings, then warehouses. And the last one is developing really fast, and we see a lot of traction there, data centers. Data
Data
centers
centers, yeah.
are probably the future of how we're going to build, because even before the first building brief is started, they are already thinking about what's the soil condition going to be? Can my cranes operate there? Because my every month I lose, it's millions of dollars I'm talking about that I can't operationalize my data center. So I think these three are the areas that we're focusing on. And in the future, we are very much going to branch into areas that are also with the same principles applied to, so we can ensure that the benefit of our platform is able then to shine.
That's great. Well, we're reaching the end of our time here, Quentin. We probably could go for another hour, but I want to thank you for your time. I mean, great insights, just a lot of fun. You've got a really fabulous vision for this, and you're making a big impact. For everyone listening, I would suggest you go on to LinkedIn and either connect to Quentin or go to LinkedIn and connect to podium.io. Go to Instagram or any of your favorite social media, connect to podium.io. Also, to follow this podcast, you can go to the Podium LinkedIn website and you can follow transformational architecture, engineering, construction from the Podium website, or you can go onto YouTube and follow it there, or Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, etc. Finally, if reach out to we'll provide information here at the end to reach out to Podium if you want to talk to them about the platform and see how it fits within your organization. So thank you, Quentin, and thanks everyone. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks for having me. I enjoyed this.